this on the desk. No reason to spill hot coffee on myself if I'm not drinking hot coffee. All right. So are we chatting yet, Twitch? Are we twitching yet? I am in fact drinking cold coffee rather than hot coffee. That can stay on my desk, because if I spill cold coffee on myself, it'll be funny. If I spill hot coffee on myself, I'll have to sue McDonald's. Anyhow, what we're going to do today is just keep working away at this Procjam game, and I guess the first thing I'll do is tell the world about it. If I'm a little bit wheezy in the beginning, I'm sorry. It's extremely cold out, and I went out in a windbreaker for some reason, because I didn't think it was that cold. So it might take a little while for my lungs to figure out what's going on. Streaming game dev for Procjam. Come see planets and pixel robots. Oh, I erased it. No, that's what I want to do. There we are. All right, then we'll pop on over here and repeat the process. All right. We should be ready to rock. Everything is all set up. It looks like it's empty, but that's fake. It's actually quite full of planets. Whoa. So I've done a little bit of adjusting here and there, but there are still more adjustments that I want to do in order to make this feel as good as possible. One of the things I'm going to be doing is adjusting the way that these animations work a little bit. One of the people who watched my videos on YouTube just asked, like 5 minutes ago, why I didn't just script the animation if it was, why did I create an animator and all that stuff if I'm just going to do a simple animation? And the answer is because it's super easy to adjust them, and I don't have to worry about it. So, for example, when I zoom in on this moon or this planet, you can see how it pops up, and then at the end it does that. What I would really like to do is have that happen at the end, because that's fast. But when you zoom in like this, I'd like to have it start really, really early. So I can do that. The only problem is that right now, the process for that is a little bit iffy. If we take a look at the animation for that, it's the focus on planet animation. And here's the event that gets called. We can bring that way back here, but if we do, then when we recalculate the planet, it's going to end up being at the lower resolution. It's going to stay at this resolution. See? So what we're going to need to do is have it so that the resolution that happens at is one which works. And that's just a matter of telling the planet that it should be at higher resolution at a lower scale. It's pretty straightforward. We could also control the LOD manually if we'd like. I tied it to the size of the object because it seemed like it was easy. But, it's caused us some pain in the past, so maybe it would have been better to make it a little bit different. But let's go ahead and try these values out and see whether or not these work. Oh, man. I should have waited a little bit longer before starting my stream, because it was cold enough out that my body is like, hey, I think that my nose needs to run. Boom. And then if we go up here, shoop, 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 shoop. Well, I'm not sure whether this is going to be something that people are going to want to play at this quality level. It's actually pretty slow, as you can see. Even with people talking off to the side, they're going to be talking at a lower frame rate. What I might have to do is break it down even further than that, because right now those are at a pretty solid, I think it's 64 frames, but it's clear that that's actually quite slow per frame. So we're going to need to make that happen a little bit slower so that each frame is faster. So here you can see what we're doing is the 32. I'm going to change this to a 64, and we should see whether or not that is going to be fast enough. Okay, so that's much faster. That's probably more acceptable, as long as the frame rate's okay. Now, the problem is that some people might not be able to maintain a good frame rate even at that level. So what we're going to want to do is make that frame rate something that adjusts. So we're going to go ahead and public int frame rate adjustment. equals 1. Well, make it a float for obvious reasons. And so down here what we'll do is we'll just multiply this by frame rate adjustment. And obviously that's multiplying an integer with a float. So what we're going to need to do is have that be a mathf dot floor, I guess, floor to int. It'll probably remain an integer value due to the way that C# casts this shit, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So the only issue we've got here is that this may end up being an awkward phase, like part of the North Pole might fill in at the last second or something. That should be okay though. What we're going to want to do is keep track of our frame rate and adjust our frame rate settings based on that. So to do that, we're going to go into the update. Let's go ahead and make that frame rate adjust a global, a static value. Where is it? There it is. There we are. And since it's on the static value, we can go over here into the click master and we can update it here. So here in our update for the master clicking, we're going to go ahead and put in a application.framerate. That's a target frame rate. Can I get the current frame rate out of this? Probably need to do it another way. My trash can just blew over. Let me just make sure that the trash can is not, in fact, like in the road. It's fine. It's empty, so it doesn't matter if it blows over as long as it's not going to get run over by a car. Exciting stuff. So what we're going to need to do is get the frame rate, and we should be able to find that. Here's a frame count. Time scale, time, smooth delta time, rendered frame count, real time since startup, fixed time step frame count. I mean, we can just take a look at the delta time and see if it's too low, I suppose. That's not great, though. I'd rather have a frame rate. Oh well. If time.delta time is greater than 0.1f, then we're going to go ahead and say that the planet.framerate_adjust plus equals 0.1f. And that way it will slowly but steadily take more and more larger and larger bytes. Now the problem with that is that it might happen in the middle of a planet changing its size or its scale. So if that happens, then we could very well end up with this processing a strange number of pixels and leaving stripes. So we're going to just quickly check and see this here. Step size is calculated here. When we actually grab our running values, here we are going to be in this process map, and you can see that we add step size here. So if step size changes during this process, then our Y step changes. And we could end up with strips that have been left unrendered. So that's a serious issue, and what we're going to need to do is probably have this be something that only gets synced up when you run. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to have a global and a local. So if we take this frame adjust, that's the public, right? We'll have a public, that's the static rather, and then we'll have float local frame adjust. And what we'll do is when run gets called, we'll just synchronize them. Easy enough. That way we won't have any problems. A planet will run slowly, but after that it will be better. The only problem is that we may end up with an extremely high frame rate adjust. We'll have to deal with that. I'll make it so that it can't get out of control. I'll make it so that if it gets above like 4, it just says that's too high. They'll have to live with a slow frame rate. If planet.framerate_adjust is greater than or equal to 4, then it equals 4. Now notice that I don't have any ability to lower the frame rate adjustment. The idea here is that if your machine is unlikely to suddenly gain new power, it's unlikely to magically suddenly start rendering planets faster. And if you do change your graphics card, presumably you'll reboot the game at some point. So I'm just going to go ahead and have it increase, and it will never decrease. Now let's go ahead and make sure that all of this works. Check for errors. I don't see any errors. Go ahead and recalculate. Yeah, it's all done. We'll hit play, and we'll just take a look and see how this adjusts. So if we click here, boom, and then if we click here, you can see how the adjustment happened. And it happened when I was rendering the small planet. So the large planet has an adjustment that is pretty nice. And because it doesn't change while we're rendering, we don't have any missing pixels. So that was pretty nice, right? Worked great. What we're going to do now is adjust the camera viewpoint so that we're looking at the planet over on this side of the screen. Now the reason for that is pretty simple. We need to have a giant UI element over here. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. The problem is that people are going to have different widths of screen. So if we assume that there's going to be a specific amount to the left, we may end up with a problem where a chunk of the planet is off of the left-hand side of their screen. But that shouldn't be too bad as long as we don't take it too far. So we're going to try and get our camera adjustment to take into account, I guess it's in the clicker. Here we are. Camera track, here it is. So if we have a selected object we're looking at here, we're going to go ahead and say, look a little bit to the right. And we'll just see whether or not that works, because the scale should be 1, 1, 1, so looking to the right should be a 1 radius, so we should be looking right at the right-hand corner of the planet. So you can see how the right-hand corner of the planet is not exactly synced here, because this is at 0.5, but when we click again, it's now dead in the center of the screen right there. And if we were to reduce the scale of this, you have to get pretty thin before you start to lose it, but I think that that's still a little too much. So let's go ahead and change this a little bit. So we're going to say if mode, what's it called? State. If state equals interaction state dot planet settlement, then we're going to want to do something very similar to this. Otherwise, we're going to want to lock into the center, because the people aren't talking when we're just wandering around. And this is going to be vector3.right divided by 2, just to give us a little bit of space off to one side. Not so much that the left-hand side of the planet ever floats off the side of the screen, unless you're using a really strange aspect ratio. Yeah, this is decent. This is kind of what I want. Okay, so we got a couple more things to think about here. One of the things I'm going to check right now is I think this hot planet, is it actually done? Okay, the height map is pretty tame on this planet, so it's not real obvious what's going on. But what we're going to need now is to integrate our robots into this mess and have them have things to say about the planet. And that is going to be the next challenge. Now, we already have a robot sidebar prefab. Here's our RoboDex. Just drop that in. And the RoboDex is just a talking head at this point. We're going to go ahead and duplicate that talking head a few times. I think that 5 is probably a good number of talking heads. They're not all going to be this robot guy, but for now, the robot guy is all we've got. The only problem with this is if you're running at a really low resolution, you may end up not being able to see all 5 of these guys. So if I look over at the game, oh, good, it automatically adjusts. I was worried about that. Good. So it should work out. Whether or not you're at a resolution high enough to see them, you'll still see them. You just may see them squished, and that's fine. So over here on the RoboDex, we do not have an object which allows us to control the robot talking heads. So that's what we're going to create right now, a script that allows us to control the robot talking heads. We're going to call this a robot group, talking head group. Doesn't really matter what it's called. There's only going to be one, and we're not going to have to type it very often. I mean, we will, but it's just going to be a reference, so it's not a big deal. Going to go ahead and open up this talking head group, and we're going to create a static value so that we can find it wherever we go. And here in awake, we're going to make that happen. Perfect. So that's pretty straightforward. It's all as it's supposed to be. The only thing we need to do now is make sure that we have a list of all of our talking heads. And so here in awake, we're also going to say heads equals get components in children, talking head. And that way we will have a list of all of the talking heads, and we can just have them spout off whatever we would like. What we're going to need, however, is a way to tell whether a talking head is currently busy talking. That's not difficult if we have access to the animator, but I don't want to go looking for the animator every single time I ever want to have a talking head check something. So we're going to have a Boolean. And then down here, when we set the talking, we're going to go ahead and set that as well. This one actually is interesting because it's not actually going to track with the animator perfectly. Because they're going to be considered to still be talking, even when they're done talking, if you're still reading their line. So that should be easy enough. All right, so that should allow us to quickly check and see whether or not a talking head is talking, which means that here in the talking head group, we can actually give it a generic say. So public void, we can actually make this a static. So public static void arbitrary say. A random say? Random say. String line. And we'll have a public static void next say. Now we'll go ahead and leave that as is. We'll go ahead and have this be... no, that's fine. Fine as it is. What this is going to do is it's going to look for a robot that's not saying anything, and then it's going to have that robot say something. So we're just going to go ahead and do a quick little list. Talking head. This is, I mean, creating a list for this might seem over heavy, but this is something that only happens once every, I don't know, 30 seconds. So it's not a big deal. And we'll just go through all of our talking heads. And we'll say if the head is not talking. So if the head is not talking, then we can make it talk. Down here, we're going to check if possibles.count equals 0, no available heads. We'll just go ahead and barf a warning, debug.log warning, all heads talking, but we still need to talk. And then we're just going to have a random head say it. So we'll say heads random.range 0, heads.count, heads.length, dot say at line. And then down here, we'll return. Then down here, we will say possibles random.range 0, possibles.length, count, dot say line. Easy enough, right? So that way we can now have this say random crap based on just whatever we would like. And later on, we'll give them maybe personalities and stuff. But for now, we'll just have it be random. So when we click on a planet and we zoom in to the actual planetary placement mode, the actual city placement mode, we're going to want to have this actually say stuff about the way that the planet is set up. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and say selected dot general chatter, and we'll go over into this planet and we'll create a general chatter, public void general chatter, talk about the planet using the talking heads system. So there's a couple of things that we're going to want to talk about. One is how far away the planet is from the sun. So float sun range, this is going to equal the x value of our transform. And we're just going to go ahead and make that into a set of checks. So the sun itself might have different, I mean, if we wanted to, we could program the sun to have a lot of different sizes and types, like blue suns and, you know, all that stuff. But we're just going to go ahead and assume that we don't need to do that. And we're just going to assume that the range is always going to be the range. It's always going to be correct. So if sun range is less than 2, then we're going to want to talk about how this is really, really hot. It's close to the sun. So we're going to go say talking heads group dot say random say this planet is extremely close to the sun. And then we'll have someone else say so much radiation is bad for organics, but solar power is nice. Then we're going to say else if sun range is less than 4. We'll have them say something more generic like planet is nice and close to the sun. And we'll say else if sun range is less than 6. A good balance between radiation and solar power. Too much radiation and too little solar power. And then down here, we'll just go ahead and give it the one last else. I can barely see the sun from here. Well, nobody will get irradiated, but nobody will get any solar power either. And let's go ahead and see whether or not this setup works. I have an error. Let's go ahead and fix the error. So I made this static and then I accessed heads without putting live in front of it. That's very straightforward. Just go live.heads. Live heads! Pretty straightforward. Okay, so you can see that they have something to say because I programmed them to say something stupid right off the bat. But if we then go over here and zoom this up and pop it in, and then we click again to get in nice and close, they'll immediately start to talk. See? So that should be fun. Now, there's a couple of things that we're going to want to maybe think about. Right now, there's no random delays on what they're saying or anything, so everyone talks at the same time, but that's okay. We'll fix that later, maybe. Let's go ahead and fix it now. We got this talking head group. We're going to want to have a public string list string random dialogue, random upcoming dialogue. Equals new, blah. And then we're going to want a protected float next dialogue counter equals 0. Void update. We could also use like, what do you call them? The fake asynchronous stuff that Unity uses, the co-routines. But for some reason, I always find this easier. A next dialogue counter minus equals time.delta time. And then we say, if next dialogue counter is less than or equal to 0, then next dialogue counter plus equals 1.5f. That's just a delay, I suppose. I can make that something that's public. Public float delay between dialogues. Delay between dialogues. There we are. And then if we have run out, we'll want to do the random say properly. So just cue that up. We'll random say random upcoming dialogue, except for we're going to use an underscore random say. Random upcoming dialogue 0, and then we're going to go ahead and say random upcoming dialogue 0, or remove at 0. And then we're going to up at the top say if random upcoming dialogue dot length dot count is greater than 0, is less than or equal to 0, then return. There we are. That'll do. We're going to need a random say, which is this line here. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that, put it here, and then random say here. And we'll just go ahead and make this protected. Now we'll make it public so that we can override it later if we need to. And we'll just go ahead and say random upcoming dialog. Come on. I must have misspelled something because it's no longer auto-completing anything. Great. So random upcoming dialog.add line. That should work fine. And that should give us a nice delay on what people are going to say. Yeah, that's the problem. But let's go ahead and have them say more things about these planets. First things first, let's go back into the planet prefabs and set them up properly, because right now they're not actually set up with the correct planetary types. And that means that we don't actually know what kind of planets they are. I don't want to turn on debug, that would be bad. This is an Earth-like. This is a gas giant. This is a hot planet. This is a moon-like. And that way we'll be able to tell what they are right away. So we'll go ahead and have that be the very first thing they talk about. So switch type. Switch planet type. Default. Talkinghead.random say. You know what? Rather than keeping on saying talkinghead.random say, let's just go ahead and create protected void say string line talkinghead group.random say line. That way we don't have to just have this long ass continuous chunk of code. We can just go ahead and shorten it. And later on, we can change exactly who says what without having to change the fundamental connection here. We don't have to, we can just change it once instead of 85 times. So default will say, I've never seen this kind of planet before. Break. Case, Earth-like, say, gravity, say, well, growing planets, a food belt planet. Say, nobody can launch rockets for crap off these things. Break, case, gas giant, say, wait, you can't settle a gas giant. This is a bug. Break. Case, hot planet, say, I love minerals, but it seems a bit sweaty. Break. Case, moon, say, the quiet of vacuum. Say, low gravity, no atmo, perfect mining opportunity. Perfect opportunity. Transport opportunity? Yeah, I'll call it. Break. So now we've got a lot of things that get said. We're going to continue to add more as time goes on, but this will work fine. We'll go ahead and see how this works and whether this works. So I am the very model. I've got to make them stop saying that because I don't need them to say that anymore. So let's go ahead and check out one of these Earth-likes. You. All right, so what we're going to need to do is check a couple of things. We're not going to have, if someone clicks while it's still rendering, we're going to want to stop them from being able to do that. So over here in the ClickMaster, in click, we do this planet settle city.run. We're going to go ahead and say if selected.state.stage does not equal finished, render stage.finished. then we're going to want to complain. So talking head group dot say random say or underscore random say, we want them to say it immediately. Hey, wait until the scans finish. Else city.run. That way we won't have a problem. Also, we're going to want to make sure that when we do this planet highlight, we don't allow ourselves to select anything that is a gas giant. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and we're gonna wait until we're trying to change over into the planet settle mode. So if selected dot planet type equals planet type dot gas giant talking head group dot random say, nobody can live on those. How about visiting a moon? There. That should get us most of the way towards having an experience that we can deal with. So we're going to hit play and take a look. I forgot to tell him to stop saying that. All right, so let's go and take a look at a gas giant if we've got one. We do. So if I click on the gas giant, it zooms in nice. But if I click on it again, perfect, right? So I can click down here, and we can get a closer look at one of these moons. And I click again, and we zoom right in. This is actually a pretty interesting moon. Look at it. It's been carved up, and it's pink. That's really I know exactly how it happened, but it's still really interesting to see it. Only problem is that those textures are actually really slow. I might try and optimize them, but first let's go ahead and post this as a tweet. Doing game dev. Pardon me while I finish coughing. That should be the last of it, I think. The coughing. All right, so let's just take a quick little look into the texture noise system and see whether or not I can optimize it a little bit, because I noticed that it's really slow, and that's bad. So you can see that we grab the source pixels, and we check and see whether or not we have them, and if we don't have them, we load them. That's correct. That should only happen once. So I'm trying to think of why this is so slow, and I think I know why. I think it's because... No, because I'm getting the pixels. The blur type wouldn't matter. It happens in a different time. Why is this so slow? It shouldn't be this slow. So when we process this, we get an offset, and we quickly figure out how we're going to be... how we're going to be processing this. We get the source color from a random source index, and then we just apply it. So somehow this is super slow, but we cache almost all these values. We cache the sine, we cache the cosine, we cache the scale, we cache the offset. Is this slow? Is this modulus slow? It shouldn't be. Modulus, it should be fast as hell. I don't see anything that should be slow here, so I'm not sure why they take so long. I'm pretty sure they're what takes so long, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something else that takes a long time, and I just don't know about it. Oh, I forgot to tell them to shut up. Let me go ahead and tell them to shut up before we go any further here. So is this a talking head? Talking head. There you are. Fuck. We don't need them to say anything at start. Perfect. Stay quiet. Let's take a look at this planet. All right, so what we need to do is we're going to make it so that you have a certain number of probes and stuff, but we'll do that later, if at all. What we need to do right now, wait until the scans finish. Okay, so it looks like what I need to do is the scans finishing thing. I need to be able to allow that to happen during the normal map system. So we'll go on over to this and we will change it so that it's okay. If it's not equal to finished and it's not equal to normal map. Because those are the only ones that matter. So we'll just say that if it's equal to the one phase that isn't those, and that would be albedo. There we are. And that should allow us to click on planets as soon as the base rendering is done, but before we finish with the normal map. So that should work out. See, if I click here, it says, hey, wait until the scans finish. And then once the scan's finished, we can immediately jump into this, even though we haven't finished with the normal map yet. This is a strange looking planet. It's got these really, really sharp crisscrossing elements. I think what I'm doing is I'm using cellular noise for the base planetary arrangement, which is not something I realized I put in as an option, but it certainly looks interesting. So we're most of the way there. There are a couple of things left to do. We have them talking about the planet in general. They talk about the type of planet and its position from the sun, which is what really matters. And then we can also have them talk about the individual cities as they bid on them. The problem is that each of these robot heads needs to have a distinct thing they want, and we need to be able to give it to them. So in order to get that, what we're going to want to do is have 5 distinct characters, each of which has a different set of priorities. So we're going to do some pixel art for a little while and build 5 distinct characters. Right. So just give me a second to set this up. I'm going to switch you over into Phoenix Wright mode while I try and figure this out. Phoenix Wright says, objection. Yeah, that actually is fine. Okay. Oh, it doesn't look like I had any problems with that. I thought I was going to, but I didn't. So we're back to the screen stream. Exciting. So we've got a robot, and I think the robots are going to be good at planets that aren't inhabitable. They're going to be fine with high radiation and stuff like that. But we need a couple of other kinds of people. We need a couple of other units that want to bid on planets, and they all need to have something interesting about them. So we're going to go ahead and first things first, I'm going to put a backdrop in just so I can see what's going on. And then we're going to want to hide this guy, and we'll create a bunch of new faces. So let's go ahead and keep in mind that these are going to be aliens, right? They're not supposed to be humans. So let's go ahead and just create some fun shapes and go for it. Create some kind of frog alien here. With whiskers. Ooh, that was loud, sorry. There we go. So this is going to be the lower layer. So suddenly I'm sneezing. Great. I know that everybody's looking forward to listening to that. Well, it's okay. For some reason, this stream is incredibly unpopular. I guess I'm not streaming material, really, but it's interesting how some days I'll get, 8, 9, even 10 viewers pretty consistently, and other days I'll only get 1. I wonder what the deal is with that. All right, so Sorry, I'm trying not to sniff directly into the mic too much. For some reason, after I come in, after being out in the cold, like half an hour later, my nose starts to sneeze all the time. It's really obnoxious. So that's going to be some kind of bug sort of thing, right? Like that. And we'll go ahead and make the eyes like a violent green. We have a couple more options. There's no reason why we can't do things that are a little bit more complicated than this in terms of the animation. So we're going to go ahead and erase the pupils, and we're going to add those in as mobile objects. Or maybe not even add them in at all, because that looks pretty neat. All right, so that's going to be our first layer. We're going to go ahead and export that as, or save that as. I guess it doesn't matter. We'll call this insect 0. Nah, that's a 9, you idiot. Insect 0, thank you. And then we're going to go ahead and build the next layer, which is going to be on top of this layer, and it's going to be the mouth. And the question is, do I want to have the mouth be 2 distinct pieces that move independently, or 1 piece? I think 2 distinct pieces might be cooler, so that's what we'll go with. And we'll go ahead and make them like pretty alien looking. Something like this is fine. And I guess we'll want to use the same basic colors. There we are. So we're going to go ahead and hide these, and that's going to be export single layer insect 1. And then we'll put this back in, and we'll create the other one, which is going to be above it. Like that. We'll go ahead and add in, like this, I guess. Add in some shiny bits. Like that, and we'll hide the rest. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have a clear profile, because we're going to be moving it around. Save as insect 2. And I think we'll go ahead and leave the eyes empty, because that's a lot of moving parts, and I don't want to have too many moving parts all at once. So with that all set up, let's go back into our game environment and create our new insectoid talking alien. The other thing we could do is we could make the head a separate layer from the body, or vice versa, and have them move distinctly as well. But I think we'll go ahead and leave it like this. So here we've got a list of our heads. We're going to go ahead and take this robot and name it Insect. And we're going to change out basically everything about it. First off, we're going to need a new animator, because this animator is not going to work. So we will go over here and create an insect animation controller. And we're going to want to drop that in, insect, into our animator. There it is. Boom. So there are a couple of things missing from this animator, like, say, animations. We're going to need to have this nothing happens and the nothing happens robot. Nothing happens robot is a simple opacity thing where it doesn't animate, but it shows everything at full opacity, whereas nothing happens will show everything at half opacity or less, and we may in fact change that later. But these two animations are going to be shared between everyone. What we're going to need to do, however, is have these have some additional animations for whatever else we need. You can see the only robot thing we've got here is robot talk, and then we just play it backwards. So it's not going to be a lot of animations. It's just one animation. But we need to have it so that the insect's face is all set up, right? So this is robot 1. We need this to be... Oh, I forgot to turn them into sprites. Hold on. I don't need insect 9. You can delete that. Insect. Nope, that's wrong. There we are. So over here, we're going to have a insect 0, I guess. Yeah, that's it. Insect 0. And then we're going to have insect 1 and insect 2. And we're going to go ahead and call this body, mandible L, and mandible R. And we're going to want a different color backdrop. That dark green doesn't really suit us, so we'll just grab the backdrop and change the channel from dark green or bluish green to, I don't know, how about something like purple? A really, really gray purple. I'm trying to think of a good color for this, and nothing's coming to mind. I guess we'll go with a blue, just because that's not a color that the body contains. But that bright green eyeball is going to make any background color a little bit awkward. That should be fine, though. So now we've got our setup. We'll go over here into the animation, and we'll create a new clip, which we will call, don't save it in sprites, save it in animations. We're just going to call insect talk. And so the insect talk is just going to be based on the nothing happens animation. In fact, I probably could have duplicated it. But what we need to do in order to make the insect talk work is to turn up all of our opacities. Because they're talking. And then we're going to want to just have them move their various facial features around. So we're going to go and just start animating. But before we animate anything, what we have to do is move and then unmove. And that's kind of obnoxious. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to remember that this is a 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So I'm going to start animating, and at the end, I'll just copy this frame and put it at the end. It's not a big deal. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to move both of these mandibles down like this, just to start slow, and then we'll bring them back up and out so that they're kind of a fun shape. Oop, that wasn't right. Come on, where's the spin? There it is. That's an interestingly difficult thing to actually select. Spin. Why is that so hard to select? Wow. Is that like 1 pixel where it's available? That's strange. So it's like, yeah, and then we're going to leave that fairly solid for a while. We'll just move it a little bit, like drift a tiny bit. And then we'll just go ahead and go a little bit off the wall. And we'll bring it back around for another dance on the other side. So yep. And then we'll bring it right back down towards a normal scale and placement. I think that this is a bad call. I think bringing it back around like this is a little bit odd. We're going to go ahead and delete this and bring these back. And let's go check that out. Let's go ahead and make this hang a little bit just so it feels a little bit more interesting. And then we'll bring them both down so that it's sort of like an open mouth. We can actually shrink it. Oh, but if we shrink it, that's actually not good because we'll have to handle the scaling all throughout, and that's going to be obnoxious, so we're not going to bother. And then we'll go ahead and do an outwards bounce again. And then we're going to go ahead and just return back to the start. Like that. So I should just go good enough. So that's going to be our insect talk. And over here in the animator, we're going to have to add an is talking, I believe we called it. Let's go ahead and just double check talking. So we'll just add in a bool called talking and set this up so that it goes into the talking. I don't think that I ever have an animation which bothers with trying to keep it I'm thinking to myself here, sorry. I'm relying on the transitions to animate the opacity, and that's fine. I'm not too concerned. So here we're going to go ahead and say that if talking, then go to insect talk. Otherwise, we want to go to nothing happens. So if we're talking, we're going to go ahead and animate the talking. When we stop talking, we're going to go over to nothing happens, which is a 3-second long animation. I think it's long, where nothing happens. And then after that, it automatically transitions over into the other nothing happens, which is the transparent version. So that should work. Shall we test it? Let's save it and hit play. Oh, look, they've all fallen off the side because I've scaled it funny. There we are. Yeah, it's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and create another alien. This one we'll go ahead and give him animated eyes that do funny things, because that's fun, right? Everybody likes funny animated eyes. Okay, so funny animated. Sorry, I switched over to using my tablet, and I tend to knock my mic around when I do that, and today is no exception. So if we're gonna have funny animated eyes, let's go ahead and have some eye slots. We'll go ahead and put them here, and I'm gonna have them like have really animated elements to them, so it should be fun. We'll go ahead and give him another eye slot here. And then we will just give him chubby cheeks down here and give him like a little teeny mouth like this. And this is going to be like his, the front panel of his head, but it's going to be in front of everything else. So I'll do this and just give him like, and now let's fill in the color that we need. I think we got a gray guy, we got an orange guy. Let's go ahead and make this guy like a green guy. I can always use the fill if I've got a simple shape like this. There we go. And that we can then go in and change some of the values to suit a more interesting kind of color. So we'll just go ahead and give him like a mottled complexion. There we are. Right, so that's going to be our first layer. Let's go ahead and create the layers that are behind it. Yeah, behind it. We're going to need to have eyeballs, which we'll just go ahead and put in like this. Now, here's the thing. In addition to having those eyeballs be there, I'm going to go ahead and connect them up to a mouth. I've put this behind, but now that I'm thinking about it, it goes better in front. So we'll just go ahead and do it like this. And then we'll put in the colors that we need. So and our eye, we'll go ahead and make it like a mostly white but somewhat yellowy set of eyes. There we are. And now for the very backdrop, we're going to just want a body that, you know, goes out like this. We'll get a darker green just for the sake of not having it blend in too much. There we are. Perfect. So let's go ahead and set these up with exports. So here we're going to have I need to say Control S. Slime 0. Actually, that's slime 2, isn't it? Slime 1. And then this backdrop is going to be slime 0. And then these eyes are going to be slime 1. Slime 2. There we are. Oh, but I put the body in as well because I'm an idiot. Okay, let's go ahead and try it out. Oh. Sorry, knocking stuff around here. Cord got tangled. Dropping the ball. Sorry. Let's go ahead and put this guy into our setup as well. Let's just go down here and turn him into the correct type of object. Boom. And then we can put him into our roster of various characters. So we'll call this guy Slimy, and we'll drop our dude in. So we're going to need to have a body. Come on. Body, face, and mouth. And we'll just go ahead and drop in the elements that we need here. There we go. And to animate him, we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to create a new animation object, a new animator controller. I think it's easiest if we duplicate the insect one. Just hit Control D on it and then call it slime. And the reason for that is just because almost everything is the same. We just need to change out one animation, so it's not a big deal. Drop in the slime here. There it is. And we'll go over into the animator. We're going to want to create a new version of insect talk that isn't for the insect, obviously. And to do that, we're just going to go down here into the animation and create a new clip, which we'll call slime talk. Sounds like a radio show. All right, so now we are slime talking, and we're just going to animate the character so that it slime talks. Easy enough. So I'll hit record. Oh, that's right. The first thing we need to do is make sure that the alphas are all 1, because that's the point of this. There we are. And then we will then begin our fun little adventure in slime talk. So we'll just adjust these as we see fit. So we can both adjust the eyes and the overall mouth. So you can see that this works okay, but what might work better is scaling it. So not like that, like this perhaps. We'll do both. We will scale it and move it as, you know, as our time advances. So, and then we'll launch into a set of fun little expressions. Spin, spin, there we are. So, let's go ahead and make this unspin more aggressively. So where is our rotation is here. We're going to want to go ahead and drag that up to here. We'll just go ahead and give it a little bit of a double bounce here so that it feels like we are talking. Oh, that's the wrong one there. And then what we'll do is we'll shrink this down and we'll bring it around, and at the same time we'll tilt the whole head. Now if we tilt the whole head, we're going to have to actually bring the face rotation out so that it doesn't blur. And then we'll hold that, and then we'll just bring it right back around to where we started, including with the face and that sort of stuff. So we'll unrotate all of these objects. So what we get out of that is okay, so you can see how this drifts. I don't want it to drift, so we'll copy this and then paste it. So we're going to hold that like it's like, that hold is not very long though. Let's go ahead and extend it a little bit. And then move this out. There we are. So now we have a talking slime, but we need to go over into the animator and switch it out. So we're going to just call this talk. And we're going to make this have the slime talk animation instead. And we can delete that. And that should work. Shall we try it out? Hit save, hit play, and take a look. So if we zoom in on a planet, and then we zoom in, no, we didn't get enough people talking. Let's leave it behind here. That's good. All right, so you can see that what we get out of that is a couple of distinct characters with distinct features. I think that backdrop is the wrong color for our slime character. So let's go ahead and change that to just a different color. How about something with a little bit of yellow? No, that's a little bit too much. Blue? Just a brighter blue. That'll do. There we are. So what else do we need? We got our weird slimy alien. We got our insect alien. What sort of things can we do? How about someone that talks out the sides of their heads? That sounds like it might be a fun thing to do. So we'll go ahead and create someone that talks out the sides of their heads. Once again, pull out the drawing board, which means I'm probably going to end up bumping the mic again. All right, so if we're going to have someone that talks out their sides of their heads, we're going to need the sides of their heads to look interesting. So why don't we go ahead and create like an hourglass shaped head, right? Like this. And we'll have something that just kind of shuttles out back and forth, and we'll like stretch it and stuff. It'll be fun. So if we do that, what do we do to make the rest of the alien look interesting? I think that we have that slime creature with the big lower face, so this needs to have a big upper face. And we'll go ahead and give it like, what do you want to call it? Hammerhead eyes, you know? And then down here, we'll have it turn into a body right away, just using some like flabby skin rolls like this. And there we'll have a basic shape. The only question is, do I really want this shape? I think what I want to do is have the eyes be a separate option. So we're going to erase the eyes. And then we're going to make this just end. So like this. And then we will fill in our elements. What's a good color? We've got an orange, we've got a gray, we've got a green. We don't have a purple yet. So let's go ahead and make this guy like a violent purple. There we go. And that's okay. Let's go ahead and put in some colors for light elements. I'll go ahead and make him seem pretty slick, right? Like he's kind of oddly slippery and gross. Because every alien needs to be oddly slippery and gross. Oh, we'll have to do someone that drools at some point, but I'm not sure how to pull that off with the limitations I've created. We'll figure it out. Anyway, above that, is this above or below? This is below. So above that, we're going to want to create the eye stalk so that we can like saw it back and forth. Come on. There we are. I was wondering why it was so thin. There. And then we're going to want to put in the same purple. And then we'll go ahead and make the eyes just a white, with a little bit of a pupil. Now, the eyes don't look great. We'll go ahead and fix them up in the overlayer, just because that's an easier place to do it. So we'll just draw in like extra. Okay, so that's a little bit too wide. Draw it over here. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put in the same greasy shading. In fact, we may not want to have this line down here at all. There, like that. And now for the rear element, which is the mouth, because it's going to talk side to side, right? So we'll just add in like a disc shape. And then we'll just close it like this. We'll color it with a darker, well, first we'll put in like a lip, like here. And then we'll add in a much darker color for the interior of the mouth. And then we'll put in some gross little teeth. There we are. And you can see how when we move these layers back and forth, should work. Let's go ahead and export them. So this will be our hammerhead 0. Hammerhead 1. And hammerhead 2. Let's go ahead and animate our hammerhead. So we've used this robot as a template, but I think Slimy makes a better template. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate them. And we're going to just go ahead and switch out all of the... Oh, no, don't record. I don't need you to record. I don't need you to project... That's weird. Okay, let's get this back under control by stopping whatever the heck you're doing. This is going to be a hammerhead. And we're going to go ahead and drop it in here. And then we're going to want to name it Hammerhead. And we're going to want to go down into our sprites and turn those Hammerhead sprites into sprites. All right, now let's set them up. So the body is actually not the body, it's the mouth. And it's going to be a Hammerhead 0. And then the face is actually the body. It's going to be a Hammerhead 1. And then the mouth is going to be the eyes. Yep, there we are. Let's go ahead and change the color preemptively. So I don't think that blue is very suitable. We've got mostly blues and greens. Let's see if I can get it to be just a... It's hard to tell what kind of color goes well with this kind of alien, but let's go ahead and give it this dark yellow. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and animate it. Go over into the animation and create a new one, which we'll call Hammer Talk. It has to go into our animations, not our sprites. Hammer Talk. Hammer Talk. There we are. And let's go ahead and move this guy's mouth around. Give him some fun things to say. So what I'm going to want to do is at the end, we're going to want to scale his body a little bit. We'll get there when I get there. Or maybe move it down and then move... Well, scaling I think is a better option. But we're going to want to move the mouth around first, because the mouth is our primary talky bit. So we're going to want to, oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Record, thank you. We're going to want to have him talk out one side of his head in preference. So he'll do both, but one side of his head is going to be more talkative than the other. And the reason for that is because it will allow us to have a more distinct feeling to our character animation. If he talks equally out of both sides, it's going to feel a little bit weird. And rotation. Unfortunately, that rotation means that we're going to want to bring it up. Oh, there was actually a rotation earlier. That's all fine then. Yeah. Okay, so this rotation, bring it up here. And we're going to want to bring this scaling back down. So, yep. Yep. Oh, you know what I should do? I should scale it up, and then I should just jaw it a little bit while we're there. And that'll give us time to saw the eyes. So if we bring it over here, and then we scale it up, like this, right? We can then just go scale it down. Fast, like snap, snap, snap. Scale it up again. Scale it down again. A little slower this time. And while we're doing that, we can also adjust the eyes and make them do a little rotation. No, that's not a rotation, that's a movement. Now we've moved the eyes, but the problem is that we've moved them starting from the beginning, and that's really not what we want. So we're going to have to move the rotation and anchored position of these eyes up to the part where we want them to start to act. So if we move it like this, he'll be like, huh? What's going on? Huh? And we can leave it like that for a little while, and then we can just pause for a moment, and then we will go ahead and duplicate this. Can I? No? Okay, so I'm going to want to copy it. And similarly, our eyes will just give them the same basic position, just a tiny, tiny twist. And then over here, we're going to go just like a little bit over the top with moving and grooving to try and get him to feel like he's more alive. So I need to get this spin. The problem I have is that unlike Blender, with Blender I can use an insert all, and the keyframes will keep things that I didn't change as supposed to have not been changed. Unfortunately, that is not the case with our buddy here. So while that's happening, we also want to move the mouth a little bit. So we'll just go back up to the mouth, and we'll just have him jaw out the side of his head again. So. There we are. And then what we'll do at the very end is just bring everything back down to flat. And that means 2, 2, 2, 2, 0. And 2, 2, 2, 2, 0. So let's just see how that looks. That looks fine. All right, so that should work. All we have to do now is drop that into the animator properly. Save this and see how it runs. That's interesting. I changed those values hard-coded. God damn it. So here in Hammer Talk, what we need to do is we need to set these as maxed out while it's recording. If we do it when it's not recording, then it changes them permanently, which is not what we want. There we are. So now if I hit play, better. Yeah, that seems fine. We could probably adjust it a little bit more if we wanted to. So we have space for one more. To be honest, I think 4 is probably enough. I don't think we need 5. I was thinking about 5, but I can't... In terms of mechanics, 5 is too many, because there aren't 5 different things we want to consider. There's only 4. Or rather, there's 8. So I think that this is probably for the best. And that means that right now what we've got is a situation where the characters will happily talk about whatever planet you are going to. Boom. So if we click here, you can see that they don't have any opinion on what's on the planet. What we're going to need to do is have each of these robots care about a specific kind of resource. And to do that, we're going to have the robot heads, the talking heads, actually have things they care about. So public list, it's a string array is fine. A public string array, likes and dislikes. Easy enough, right? And that's going to be the things that they give you more or less money for. So if we look at the hammerhead, for example, we can give him likes and dislikes that are related to being a shiny purple blob. So we have a couple of different things that we need to take into consideration. One of them's, these are listed here in the city, but one of the things that we're not doing here, we're not actually, this fire is, we're going to want to have 2 different kinds of fire. We're going to want to have a fire, which is red, and then we're going to want to have something else, which is blue. So if is highest color, is dominant value, color, comma, 1, then what we're going to want to do is say that it's a fire, because that means that there's one very, very bright color, and it's going to be red. We don't really care. But if there's not, then we're going to want to make this sparkles, because sparkles are cool, right? The other thing we're going to want to do is we're marking the color, but we also need to mark the resources for radiation and solar power and stuff like that. And to do that, we need to get those values based on the city's initial position, and then we will adjust them based on the kind of place we're on. So we can also have heat, temperate heat versus other things. All of that stuff comes from how far away from the sun we are. So that's going to be the very first thing we need to know. When we're calculating out the final results here, float range from sun equals transform.position.x, float heat equals 1 divided by range from sun, and then we're going to want to change that based on how close to the equator we were initially set up. And you can see that we store this initial y as a integer value, but we keep the initial landing spot. And the initial landing spot is a value between 0 and 1 on the y-axis. So what we can do is we can convert that into a value between -1 and 1, and then absolute value it, and we'll have how close to the poles we are. So float pole poleness equals initial landing spot dot y times 2 minus 1 mathf.abs. And that'll just mean that at 1 we're at the poles, and at 0 we aren't. So at 1 we're at the poles. And what we'll do is we will just go ahead and subtract that from heat. So heat minus equals poleness. But the problem is that heat maxes out at 1, whereas poleness goes from 0 to 1. And that means that if you are far away from if you're very, very close to the sun, you'll have places where the heat is decent. But otherwise, you won't. So what we actually need to do is then say poleness minus equals 0.5 F. That's not how you spell poleness. There we are. Poleness is negative 0.5 for equatorial, 0.5 for poles. And we'll go ahead and set that up like this. That way, when you're on the pole, you'll get extra heat, even if you're very far away. But right now we're doing a minus equals. That means that if you're really far away and you get no sun temperature, you end up getting... so this is not going to work, because we need to actually multiply this by poleness instead. So what we need to do is we're going to want to modify this by a value based on how equatorial we are. So we're just going to subtract 1. So 1 minus equals fine. At 1, we're at the equator. And that means that will be the maximum heat that we get. Easy enough, right? Radiation is going to be the exact same. So heat and radiation are going to be interchangeable. And we're going to want to also calculate out... what was it? Heat, radiation, and solar. Those are all based on this same value, but we're going to be modifying them. So radiation equals heat, float solar equals radiation. And what we're going to want to do is modify them based on the emplacement type. So we're going to go calculate the emplacement type and then do all this crap. So these down here, hold on. We're going to actually do everything else first. So flatten the resource table, because these are going to be outside of the resource flattening. Now calculate global values. Switch emplacement. Case crater. So if we're inside of a crater, I don't think that that's going to affect any of our values. So what we're going to need to do here is, yeah. So flats, on a flat, we're going to go ahead and, I'm trying to think of the best things here. I know that the one I definitely know is that the hillside and the ridge are both going to do interesting things. So on the hillside, we're going to end up taking our radiation way down because we're buried in a hillside. So on the ridge, we're going to increase our solar because we are able to see the sun for longer. And that means that in a crater and on a hillside, we are in a crater on a flat, we can do other things. So in the crater, we'll go ahead and increase heat. And that means that what we've got here is a situation where our setup is pretty straightforward. The bad things get decreased or the good things get increased. Well, heat isn't necessarily good, but it's usually good. The other thing we're going to want to consider is that if we've got fire or sparkles as a resource, our heat is actually tremendous. So if if resources dot key contains key fire, is it lowercase or uppercase? Fire, lowercase. Then we're going to want to say heat plus equals resources fire. And if it sparkles, that I called it sparkles, right? Sparkles, sparkles, sparkles. Divided by 2. And that should be pretty straightforward. Oh, this was correct. Why was it highlighting something then? Do these need to be quotes? These need to be quotes. There we are. So this will be a lot hotter depending on what we're doing here. We could make this like sparkles could be more of a solar thing, but I don't think that makes any sense at the moment. Let's go ahead and do that though. We'll go ahead and make it so that it's also going to increase your solar. So that works fine. And that means that we've got a bunch of resources that we'll want to use. So we're going to want to sort our, we're going to want to create a valuation for all of these robots. And to do that, we're going to need to have a method for the robots to know, the talking heads, to know what sort of valuation they're supposed to do. So down here, we're going to go ahead and say public void evaluate, and then pass over the resource set. So it's going to be a dictionary of string float resources. And then we're going to want to evaluate all of the things that we care about. And that's going to be just a case of going through all of our likes and dislikes and creating our own local version of this same dictionary. So dictionary string float ratings equals new. And then we're going to go through the dictionary for each key val pair string float entry in resources. We're going to go and check and see whether or not we have it as a like or a dislike. So if likes.contains, okay, so we're going to change these over into a list so that we can use some simpler operations on them. Likes.contains entry.key. Then we're going to want to add that in to our ratings. Ratings.add entry.key and entry.value. We're also going to want to clear those, though. So likes.clear and dislikes.clear. Else if dislikes.contains entry.key. Same thing, but with a negative value. And we're going to want to keep a final floating evaluation. Final value plus equals entry.value. Final value plus equals minus equals entry.value. Now we're going to want to create a string for them to say. There's a lot of ways to do this, so we're just going to go ahead and just create it easy peasy, just as one big block. We don't really care what things are strongest or weakest, but we should probably sort this dictionary before we send it out. Let's go back over to the city and let's tell it to sort itself. So in order to do that, we're going to want to do a oh, I forgot to add these as resources, didn't I? So hold on, resources.add radiation, heat, and solar. So with that in mind, we're going to want to have them sorted. So resources, can we sort these? Okay, it's no sorting allowed, apparently. Okay. I guess that's not too bad, but we're going to want to go through all of the talking heads. So for each talking head in talking head.heads, I guess we're going to go ahead and talking head group.heads. Head.evaluate resources. So we're going to need to create a string out of this, but unfortunately, since the dictionary is unsorted, we may end up commenting on things that don't matter much. We're going to go ahead and just who cares, right? We're going to just make it crap, and it's fine. We'll improve it later if we want. So if we get here, what we're going to want to do is say something about the object that we like or dislike. So normally I would go ahead and add in just a hard-coded text string, but what I actually want to do is allow us to have likes and dislikes that turn into phrases. And the problem is that I can't do a dictionary string. So we're just going to go ahead and have them map one-to-one with the index. So we'll just go ahead and say dialogue plus equals likes dialogue. And then we'll just grab the index of the like. Same thing here. Except for, apparently, I screwed that up. That should be fine, though. Perfect. That will allow us to create a unique feel for each of these little monsters. And then we'll just have them say their dialogue. We're also going to want to have them like put up an amount that they're willing to sell it for, but we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to just debug it, debug.log, final cache for name equals, and then final value. Right now, none of these values have been set, so we have to go through our various aliens and quickly set up the things they like and dislike. It shouldn't be too bad. We just need to, invent some stuff. So the robots, they probably really like solar power, and they don't care about radiation. So we're going to go ahead and put in solar here. And the like dialogue will be, we can harvest solar from this. And for now, we're just going to go ahead and do some very, very, very primitive stuff here. We've got solar here. We're going to go ahead and have gravity also be a value. And the gravity value is going to be based on just the... it's going to be based on partly the size of the planet, but also how close to the equator you are. So once again, this poleness is 1 at the equator. So what we're going to want to do is put this up here. And then we're going to want to also have a launch difficulty or gravity, float gravity equals. And then what we're going to do is have this be based on the size of the planet. So we're going to go ahead and make it 1, and then we're going to say switch planet. Is it called planet? No, it's called something else. P dot planet type case moon gravity equals 0.25f break case planet type dot earth-like gravity equals 3f break. I guess 3 is too much, so we'll go ahead and make this 1, and then we will make the hot, make that 0.25, and we'll make this 0.1. And then at the end, we're going to multiply that. So if we wanted to have this be 0 at the equator, what we would do is we would multiply it by 1 minus the poleness, because the poleness is 1 at the equator. So what we want to do, however, is not quite that, because the gravity shouldn't ever be completely gone. It should just be reduced. So we're going to reduce it down to 0.5. So I'm going to say gravity times equals, if we do 1 minus poleness, then we'll end up with something that goes from 1 to 0. And we actually want something that goes from 1.5 to 0.5. And that's just like that. And once again, we're going to want to make sure that we add those values. Perfect. And that way we can add to our robots a dislike of having to launch crap. It seems to be annoying to get off the ground. And we're going to want to add in just a little bit of spacing. And so now that's our robot. They want solar power and they don't like gravity. are insects. They're probably, well, let's go ahead and toss on over to slime here, because slime likes solar power as well for the purposes of growing food. This facility could grow lots of food. And then we're going to want a dislike of radiation. But there's a lot of nasty radiation happening. And our hammerhead, we're going to go ahead and have our hammerhead like some of the actual other values. Because we have a whole bunch of other resources that we're not really talking about yet. And I've forgotten all of their names. That's planet, we want city. Here they are. Fire, ice, water, sludge. Obviously, we're going to want to add a lot of these. So let's go ahead and add in, well, let's make this guy like water. Aquatic habitats are the best. And we're going to go ahead and give him a dislike of, maybe of heat. Yeah. This place would burn our skin off. Now you'll notice one thing is that those final values, heat, solar, those are always at the end after things like rock. So if I put a but in, they'll generally have something positive to say and then something negative. So but works fine. That is, of course, assuming that I ever actually put the other values in, which I will. I'm just testing this right now. So we're going to make this guy like minerals, I think. Oh, vegetation is like its own thing. That's good. Is it minerals or mineral? Mineral. And this place is perfect for mining. And then for dislikes, we're going to go ahead and have this guy dislike ice. Look at all this nasty ice. All right, so that's given them all just a very, very basic set of likes and dislikes. And we're just going to go ahead and test and see how that feels. Boom, boom. Clear it out. Tick. I love minerals, but it seems a bit sweaty. This planet is nice and close to the sun. So if you take a look, this is a very, very primitive planet in terms of having things to do. It's just a flat ball with fire on it. So I think that's actually not worth inhabiting. We'll just go ahead and back off. We'll click over here. There. So with this being calculated, we can then go ahead and select locations to put characters on. If we select an ocean, I think that this bright blue water is water and not sludge. So if we drop it, for example, right here. Okay, you can see that these values came in as 0 for everybody, even though it was clear that water was a value. They didn't actually say anything. That's interesting. Which one of these guys liked water? It was the slimy, right? They like solar, not water. Oh, it was the next guy down, hammerhead, water. So this guy should have said aquatic habitats, but he didn't. You can see the hammerhead says 0. So did I misspell it? No, there it is. Likes 1, water. Let's see, what did I do wrong here? If likes.contains entry.key, debug.log, name plus likes plus entry.key. Dislikes, entry.key. Let's go ahead and keep trying this until we figure out something that works here, because this is, Obviously, something I'm just missing. I've just done something dumb and not figured it out properly. Go ahead and click on this guy, because I know that we don't like radiation. And this should work. I love minerals, but it seems a bit sweaty. This planet is extremely close to the sun. So much radiation is bad for organics, but solar power is nice. So this planet has a little bit more diversity than the previous one. We could land right here in this giant shiny patch. That should be hot. Okay, so you can see that they had things to say, but they really were like bloop bloop. And none of these things actually got triggered. That's interesting. I wonder whether the resources aren't properly populating. Let's go ahead and else debug.log name doesn't care about entry.key. Get ourselves a nice sweaty planet here. So by clicking real fast, I went and crashed this system. Not sure what I should do if I do that sort of thing. I'll think about it. But the basic issue is right here. So we're going to go ahead and say that if this index doesn't exist, then this is alpha to normal. I don't know. We'll deal with it later. So this here is going to be some place that's hot. So if we click... Okay, so I actually do need to completely refurbish it here. So if I were to click on the fire, it says robot doesn't care about fire, robot doesn't care about radiation. So hold on. Robot doesn't care about gravity. Robot does care about gravity. Robot cares a lot about gravity. So for some reason, robots don't seem to care about gravity, even though... Oh, the dislikes got cleared out for our robot. What? I'm an idiot. So the problem is that I'm very stupid. Has nothing to do with any of this code. I'm clearing out the likes and the dislikes because I'm an idiot. I was going to use them for something else. What we need to do here is clear out the ratings. Oh, we already do. That's fine. So this should now work. We should now no longer be doing something incredibly dumb. Oh, sparkles. Should we grab ourselves some sparkles? These are pretty rare. All right, so it looks like what we're going to want to do is just rearrange the order in which these are added at the end. Just because radiation is always bad, so it should just come last all the time. Heat is usually bad. Gravity is always bad. So that should be fine. That should allow us to get a better sequence. And over here in the talking head group, we're going to want, or in the talking heads, we're going to want to have it so that if we don't have anything to say about it, then we don't say anything. Or we do say something, but it's just like, whatever, you know? So the issue here is all of these characters do talk at once. And that's fine if when they talk for a really, really long time. So what I may do is adjust the timeout, but we'll go ahead and deal with that. So here we're going to go ahead and say if dialogue does not equal quotes, then say it. Otherwise, say we have no interest in this planet. There we go. So now you've got this situation where if they don't care, they'll tell you they don't care, and otherwise they'll talk about it. We're going to want to have this thing where our text speed is temporarily slowed down. Not text speed, sorry. Our counter speed is temporarily slowed down if we are talking about a bid. So we're going to have a public bool bidding equals false. Down here, we'll go ahead and say bidding equals true. And we're going to want to have this so that if we ever stop talking, then we're going to want to say that bidding is back to false. But what we're going to need to do here is this counter, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go ahead and change that so that here, this part. We're going to want to say if this is, if we're bidding, then something else. So if bidding, else if. Yeah, so this is never going to happen. So we'll just go ahead and copy this whole thing. And instead of convo.length times 2 plus 10, it's going to be plus, I don't know, 50. No, 100. 100, that's good. That way we will have plenty of time for us to... oh, this should be false. I was wondering why we were getting some errors. That's fine, though. This should allow us to really, really hang on the bidding section so that we don't lose track of what they're saying. Oh, we got quite a lot of sparkles. That's interesting. I expected to have more fire and less sparkles, but I guess that's not the case. Seems to be annoying to get off the ground. That should be near the equator. Well, I mean, there is some gravity. So what we're going to want to do is change that so that the amount of gravity is 0 if it's below a certain threshold. So we'll go over to this city, and gravity here is 1.5 minus poleness. We're going to go ahead and say if gravity is less, or then we'll just go ahead and say gravity minus equals, gravity equals mathf dot clamp 0, gravity minus 0.3 f 0 100, something like that. That way we won't have a gravity element if if there is no gravity element. Similarly, with radiation, we're going to want to have the exact same value where we clamp the radiation down if we are handling it. So radiation equals mathf.clamp, radiation minus 0.03. Gravity, heat. Okay, so heat and solar we're not going to clamp. There we go. So that should work. Yeah, that should all work. And that should allow us to get a value out of this. And so what we're going to want to have each of these creatures say is what their current value is. If we increase this alpha to 1, you can see there's lots of space down here. That's on purpose. We're going to be having another unit down there, which is going to be the cash offering for the planet. I'm not ready to do that yet, though, just because I'm not quite ready for the situation to get quite that far. First, I want to go ahead and create a few more things that people like and dislike. I'm going to go ahead and have the robots hate vegetation. And that will be like a double whammy. What's all this green crap? But we're going to want to have the slimy people like vegetation. And that's the basic idea here, is for the rest of this, we'll have one person like and one person dislike for almost everything. Oh. It's a garden. Wonderful. Now for ice. We already have someone that dislikes ice. It's the hammerheads, right? No, they dislike water. Slimy dislikes ice. So hold on. First off, let's go ahead and move these so that I can see them. Come on. Is there still that right click option for moving them to the top? Move up, but there's no move to the top. Okay, that's fine. We'll just move it manually. I don't know why that would make you lose the connection to your prefab, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It's all good. Move this talking head up. Boom. Now, who dislikes ice? Slimy dislikes radiation. Insect dislikes ice. Okay, so insects dislike ice. Someone likes ice, and I guess it's probably going to want to be the hammerheads, because they dislike heat, so liking ice would make sense. Oh, wait, they like water as well. I don't want them to like both water and ice, because those are too similar. So we'll have the robot. The robot likes minerals, and the robot will like ice. So yeah, that'll make sense, because that way, when you're on a planet that has ice, you can still convince the robots to land, because ice really only forms on green planets, and robots generally are going to hate those. So you put them on the North Pole or something. But the North Pole has a gravity bonus, or gravity penalty, rather, so they're not going to like that. See if you can find some ice in the Midlands, maybe. Anyway, ice. Ice. Great for fuel. And we're going to want to... Oh, I just closed it because I was an idiot. I was like, I wonder if anybody said anything in chat. No, nobody said anything in chat. But unfortunately for me, the thing that was blocking chat was the one thing I needed to look at next. So let's take a look. We've got fire and sparkles. Right now, none of these groups like fire or sparkles. But what we can do is make the robot like fire, because that makes sense. Oh, thermal power, unlimited power, thermal power, I mean. And then we're going to want someone who dislikes fire. Would make sense if it was this guy. He dislikes heat, he dislikes fire. But if he dislikes heat, he automatically dislikes fire. It's not like there is a special case where there's going to be fire without heat. So I guess I'm not going to bother with the dislike for the heat, just because it's going to be something that someone else already hates. We're going to go ahead and have sparkles. So who likes sparkles? We're going to go ahead and make the insect like sparkles. Sparkles. Look at the sparklies. There we are. So we've got ice, water. Do we have someone who dislikes water? I think that we do not. Everybody seems to like water, or be neutral to it. The slimes definitely aren't going to dislike water. That wouldn't make any sense. The insects already hate ice. Hating both ice and water seems like overkill. The robots have no reason to hate water. I guess we'll just leave water as neutral, because I can't seem to figure out a good way to make it make sense. Now, sludge, on the other hand, this is more interesting, because what we can do is we can make this guy like sludge. Toxic sludge. Wow. Great for our mutant plant gardens. But we're going to want to have people hate sludge, and I think it is best if it is the hammerheads, because that way you'll quickly learn the difference between sludge and water. Toxic water. Toxic water. We prefer not dying. Let's see. We've got vegetation. We already handled that. We've got minerals. I don't think there's any reason to have anybody hate minerals. Sand and regolith are the last two main values here. We're going to have the robots hate sand because it's coarse and it gets in everything. I hate sand. It's coarse. It gets in everything. I should probably look that quote up just in case I misquote it, you know. But someone likes sand, and I think it's going to have to be the hammerheads, because they don't have many things they like. sand, we can make glass and circuits. So now we need for regolith. Regolith is always fun. Let's just drop it on whoever doesn't have enough balanced elements. The robots, they like and dislike a lot of stuff. The insects, they could dislike the regolith, but liking it is a little bit rough. Slimy, they could also dislike it, but liking it, there's a lot of things they like already. I guess the hammerheads, but that means they like both sand and regolith, and that's not going to work. The slimies only hate radiation. We're going to have to add more things they hate. Similarly, the insects only hate ice. There's going to have to be more stuff they hate. Let's go ahead and make them like regolith. No, because they already like minerals. So if they like minerals and regolith... So regolith, minerals, and sand happen over the course of a normal planet. So we don't want someone to like two of those things, which means that if we look at the robot, they like solar, ice, and fire, but they don't like minerals. So we're going to go ahead and have them like the regolith. Regolith will dig deep beneath. Now, regolith is something that people who hate radiation would normally like, which is why I was thinking about having it be... Well, that's actually fine, too. These guys, we'll go ahead and give it to these guys. Sorry, I'm just trying to balance it as we're going here, and that's obviously a losing proposition. Regolith. Excellent radiation shield. Now, someone hates regolith, and it's probably going to be you. Dirt. Yuck. Gets stuck all over us. No thanks. So now we've got a lot of people who like a lot of different things. We're going to need to do some balancing passes, but right now the problem is the insect. They like minerals and sparkles, both of which are fairly rare, and they dislike ice, which is also fairly rare. So let's go ahead and give them some other things they like and dislike. Let's make them like solar, so they can compete a little bit. Sunshine powers many things. And we want to make them dislike more than just ice. So we could have them dislike regolith or sand. That would be kind of an interesting twist. Let's go ahead and have them dislike sand. That way we've got several groups that dislike sand, and that really weights it against sand. Sand. What is it called? Our life support chokes on sand, so no thanks. But our life support chokes on sand. So now we've got liking and disliking common things is good. So the slime's only dislike is radiation. And that's a little bit too few things, because that just means that you can't land near the sun, but everything far away from the sun is happy. So they like solar, and they hate radiation, which is a fun combination. But what we need is for them to hate something else. Well, we've got someone who hates... We've got two people who hate sand, and now we can have two people who hate regolith, but they like regolith. So, do they hate sludge? No, they like sludge. They could hate water. That could be fun, right? They could hate ice. They could hate gravity, but that doesn't make any sense because they're green planet people. They could hate... No, it has to be something that's common. So it's going to have to be maybe minerals. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But at least it is interesting. we're allergic to all the iron in this soil. All right, save that, hit play. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right. So if we then click in and zoom, I love minerals, but it seems a bit sweaty. This planet is nice and close to the sun. Hey, wait until the scans finish. All right. So we've got a lot of minerals here. I think if we go here, this will count as a mineral deposit. We can harvest solar, perfect for mining. We're allergic to the iron in the soil, but there's a lot of nasty radiation happening. So that delay was nice, but it wasn't anywhere near long enough. So our delay on our talking heads, we're going to make it like 500. Here's a gas giant, but it is on its own. Oh, it's a green planet, not a gas giant. Just looked like a gas giant for a minute. Food belt planet. All right, so now we have this huge food belt planet, and we can just select any place we'd like on it to settle. Let's go ahead and pick someplace green. It's a very deserty planet, but that's fine. And, oh, just a little too slow. I think that is also, even that is not enough. So we're going to go ahead and, if we're bidding, we want to have a really, really long delay. I'm going to go ahead and, we could even make it so there is no maximum, and until you finish bidding, it doesn't work. I think nothing happens. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. If bidding, then we don't do jack shit ever. So if you're bidding, then you will never ever stop talking. Now, right now, that's not going to work in terms of play, because if you back out of the planet and go somewhere else, it's going to screw up. But that's fine for now. We don't have to worry about that just in this debug state. And that means that I can take a screenshot of all of the characters talking without some of them having finished. Oh, they still finished. Okay, so my problem wasn't that the system wasn't working. It was that the bidding isn't triggering properly. So bidding equals true, right? There's no place for the bidding to not equal true here. If you're evaluating, your bidding equals true. In which case, down here... Oh, you know what it is? We never... idiot. Okay, so... I forgot that I'd hard-coded the delay after they finish bidding. So this actually needs to be up here. If bidding, else if. So if we're bidding, then we don't care what the counter is, and we just continue to talk forever and ever and ever. Very basic setup. It should work. Let's go ahead and click on this planet. So it's got a moon, just because moons are cute. A food belt planet. Nobody can launch rockets or crap off these things. A good balance of too much radiation and too little solar power. Oh, and look, it's very green. It's got a very small desert belt, which is nice. And there, now we have a screenshot. We're going to go ahead and post that screenshot. Let the bidding commence. And let's go ahead and pick another spot, like here in the desert. Okay, so that wasn't actually an ice cap. There's no ice cap on this planet. Just go ahead and put it in the water. Oh, so the bright stuff is toxic. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's a mix of aquatic and water and sludge. That's fine. All right. Perfect. I'm going to stop now. I don't think anybody has any questions, but if you do, you've got a very short amount of time before I turn it off. So ask them now. And that's it for today. So, yeah. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be done with this pretty much on schedule. Just need to do 1 or 2 more streams, maybe about 5 hours of work left. So if you come by, I'll probably do another stream tonight and then 1 tomorrow. Maybe 1 more if I can't finish it on time. But hopefully we'll be back to working on our actual project before the weekend is over. Because it's just a game jam game. Anyhow, see you around.